Senator, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I want to start off right off the bat and talk about the state of the race quickly. So obviously Georgia is a battleground state, but
big time.
Kamala Harris has really gained a lot of momentum here in Georgia in such a short amount of time. How do you stop that from growing here in Georgia?
I think it's very simple. We just have to tell the truth, right? Donald Trump delivered a secure border. He delivered lower prices on groceries and housing and rising wages for Americans. Kamala Harris's policies as vice president have led to higher inflation, have led to that wide open southern border. I mean, you saw, we just talked to the law enforcement officers about drug cartels bringing drugs in that look like candy, and it targets our children. We've got to stop this, right? We just have to bring common sense back to the White House, and that's why we have to reelect Donald Trump. I think we tell that message to the American people, to the people of Georgia. They're going to make the right decision, but that's what the campaign's all about, right? We've got 75 days to make our case, and we're going to keep on doing it.
Absolutely, and I want to touch on election integrity with you quickly.
Yeah.
How confident are you with the changes that Georgia has made, or maybe the lack of changes Georgia has made in terms of election integrity in this state going into November?
Yeah, well, you remember a couple years ago, Georgia made some very moderate changes to voter identification, requiring voter ID to vote in certain elections and so forth, and a lot of people howled in protest, even though a majority of Americans think that you should show an ID in order to vote. I think Georgia's actually made some good progress. Of course, you can always do more, but I do think that Georgia's going to have a much better election, frankly, in 2024 than it did in 2020, and some of the reforms that have been put in place are going to help that effort. So that's a good thing, right? We want every vote to count, but only if it's a legal vote, and I think Georgia's made some good progress.
So you would say you're confident in Georgia's election system right now?
I think that we're in a good spot, right? There's certainly going to be disagreements. There are things that the Democrats are going to try to do where Republicans will push back, or Republicans will try to do where Democrats will push back. But I think by and large, Georgia's moved in the right direction. That's a good thing.
Absolutely. I want to touch on RFK Jr.'s anticipated speech for tomorrow. He's expected, according to press reports, that he is going to suspend his campaign and throw his support behind you and the former president. I want to give you this chance to talk to South Georgia independent voters. What's your message to them?
I think it's that, unfortunately, the Democratic Party of JFK has been replaced by the open borders Democratic Party of Kamala Harris. And if you just believe in common sense, you may not agree with Republicans on every single issue, but you just want some basic common sense back in government, then I think Donald Trump is your guy, because he is the candidate fundamentally of common sense in this election. So I think it's a really good thing, right? We don't agree with RFK on every issue. A lot of people don't agree with Donald J. Trump on every issue, but we're a big tent party that welcomes everybody, so long as you believe in some basic things like securing that southern border and like reducing the cost of groceries and housing. That's what this whole campaign is about, making American life affordable again for normal Americans and making our streets safe enough that our kids can have a good life.
Absolutely. I want to touch on abortion really quick. A lot of Democrats are saying that you support a federal abortion ban. What's your response?
Well, I don't, and Donald Trump doesn't. And Donald Trump's been very clear that he thinks the way to solve this culture war that we've had on the abortion topic is to let the states and let the voters decide. You know, Georgia's going to want to have a different abortion policy from California. California's going to want to have a different abortion policy from Alabama. And I think the way to actually build some compromise here is to let the states make these decisions themselves. That's one of the reasons why Donald Trump has pushed back against the idea of a federal abortion ban. Now, on the other side of it, of course, our Democratic opponents are saying things like, we want nationalized abortion policy, we want taxpayer-funded abortion right up until the moment of birth, and even, some crazy things like shutting down Christian hospitals because they won't perform abortions in the way that national Democrats require them to do. That is the way to inflame this country and, frankly, have a lot of really disgusting public policy. I think Donald Trump's decision, let the states figure this stuff out, is both wise, but also help the country decide on some compromise.
One last question for you, sir, and it's about drug trafficking. The State Department here released data from 2019 to 2022. It saw a 308% increase in fentanyl overdoses.
That's right.
I mean, what are you going to do if elected to stop that from happening in Georgia and, of course, across the entire state, but really here in Georgia?
Well, the statistics don't lie, and fentanyl trafficking has gotten a lot worse, unfortunately, because of the wide open border of Kamala Harris. And I think the first thing that you have to do, shut down that border, go to war against the drug cartels, and prevent the flow of this poison coming into our communities. I mean, I grew up in a family, my mom struggled with opioid addiction for a big chunk of my early life. When we prevent this poison from coming into our communities, we give people who are suffering from drug addiction, we give their kids that opportunity to get a second chance with their loved ones. When you have something that is as deadly as fentanyl coming into our communities, you're going to orphan a lot of kids, you're going to end a lot of very innocent life. And unfortunately, we've seen an increase in this because Kamala Harris doesn't do her job. Donald Trump will.
Senator, thank you.
Of course. Thank you.